Hi everybody, Kyle here. Today I'm going to be covering The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, a game which serves as the prototype to what would eventually become the Elder Scrolls series going forward. Except no, I'm actually playing Daggerfall Unity, which is Daggerfall recreated in the Unity engine. Listen, it's complicated. Some few years ago, a mad lad got the idea into his head to put Daggerfall through the Unity engine, and it's the best way to play Daggerfall today. It's very easy to set up, and it's completely free too. It fixes a crapload of bugs, glitches, and exploits, adds in mod support, which I will be talking about later in the video, as well as several quality of life updates. It also makes Daggerfall much less prone to crashing and save file corruption. The first thing that I think we should talk about in regards to Daggerfall, and I'm sure you've all heard about this one by now, but Daggerfall's world is absolutely huge. It's bigger than most other games today in the year 2026. In fact, the game world is about the size of Great Britain. I don't know if Daggerfall's world is actually that big or not, but I do know that I actually tried to walk from one place near Daggerfall to the actual city of Daggerfall, and it still took more than just a couple of minutes. Unfortunately, for how big Daggerfall's world is, there isn't much to see or do between these locations while you're out and about and on the road. What you're meant to do anytime you want to travel is pull out your map of the Iliac Bay and choose the region that you want to travel to, and then either click or enter the name of the place you want to find and fast travel to it. Trying to travel between locations on foot is not recommended. To reiterate, you absolutely can do it, but there's not much to see in the wilderness of Daggerfall, as most of the overworld is empty apart from towns and dungeons. Since towns and dungeons are going to be where you spend the vast majority of your game time, you should know that the game's dungeons are all randomly generated, and they are quite large, and most of the textures in the dungeons are the same. In fact, one dungeon is so large that I actually got lost and ran in circles trying to find out where I needed to go. The map does help with your dungeon delving a bit, showing you areas where you haven't been yet, and even where secret doors are, so I recommend checking it out from time to time. The map is in 3D and looks exactly like what the dungeon itself looks like, but for someone like me, it was still more than possible to get lost. Sometimes I had to use console commands to help me find my quest target so I could proceed, although that command doesn't always work. Sometimes, if a quest has more than one way to solve it, it will only point you to that one way, as I would later learn during one of Daggerfall's main quests. Oh, and have some skill with magic in Daggerfall, or at least carry some magic items and or potions that can cast levitate and water breathing on your character at all times. If your character has increased magery, increase spell points, because in Daggerfall, spell points are half of your intelligence points by default, you're going to have a very bad time with the game. I learned this very quickly when I got far enough in the main quest that if I hadn't cast Recall and set an anchor point at a location before getting to the end of the dungeon, or without potions of levitate, I was stuck and wouldn't be able to continue the game, and even worse, the game makes no forewarning of something like that either. It feels needlessly harsh to screw a player over just because they didn't think to bring in something that could get them back out of a situation like that. Thank God for console commands, am I right? So unless you plan to buy and hoard a load of levitation and water breathing potions, learn some magic and take increased magery times 3 at character creation. The other part of the time you spend in Daggerfall is towns where you can join guilds, temples, and knightly orders and take quests. not just from the factions and guilds, but even from shopkeepers and the peasantry too. However, the guilds are much more interesting and actually offer benefits for completing quests that they give you. For one, they can unlock new dungeons for you to explore, and on top of that, give you special benefits and privileges as you rise in rank. These are the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, Knightly Orders, and Temples. Each faction comes with its own set of quests and can offer to train your skills, and for the Temples and the Mages Guild, actually teach you new spells. However, be forewarned that to even join a guild in the first place, you must have a positive reputation with that particular faction, which can be raised by doing non-guild quests or, in the case of the Temple, donating money. You also have to have one of that faction's favorite skills at least at level 22, which is where you would normally want to train a skill up to anyway. So it's a bit of a catch-22 sort of deal. You need to join the faction to get to level 22 in a skill through training, yet you must already have said skill be at level 22 to join in the first place. Well, one of the favorite skills of the faction be at level 22 anyway. During character creation, you have to choose which province of Tamriel your character originally hails from. Imperials and Orcs still aren't playable in Daggerfall just yet, as they wouldn't be introduced until Morrowind. However, once you've chosen your character's race and their gender, you can then choose your class from a list or take the personality quiz, or do what every single other player does and just create their own class. You can alter your character's stat points to be anywhere between 10 and 75, choose their primary, major, and minor skills, what advantages and disadvantages they have, and even their reputation, with the 5 factions scattered around the Iliac Bay. The more a faction likes you, the more likely they are to have things to tell you and may even assign you quests. If they don't like you, well, they tell you to get lost, basically. No different from real life for me, then. After that, you have to choose your character's backstory and career path through 12 questions that are closely tied to your character's class. These will give you higher or lower reputation among the game's factions, raise certain skills, and even give you different starting equipment. Speaking of equipment, money was never really an issue for me during my playthrough of Daggerfall, even without mods. If you can find a wagon to store the loot you find in dungeons, and can then cart it back to a town and sell it all to a merchant, whose store is basically described as being shitty in the game's own little way, you can make a killing doing that, man. Later in the game, when your character has hit a high enough level, you can find in dungeons, like, gold piles of anywhere around 600 to over 1,000, and that's in a single pile, to say nothing of the loot you'll acquire. Just remember that money in Daggerfall also has weight and will weigh you down, which is where banks and letters of credit come into play. Banks can store your money for you and then convert your money into letters of credit, which have the same value as gold and can be used at most establishments, not all of them, but most of them, and weigh a whole lot less than those gold coins. Daggerfall's main story feels like something of an afterthought. The Emperor, Uriel Septim VII, tells you that King Lysandus was killed on the field of battle, and that he now haunts the city of Daggerfall at night. He wants you to go there and try to exorcise Lysandus' spirit so that he can get his eternal rest. He also tells you of a letter that he sent to Lysandus' wife telling her that since Lysandus is gone, they can finally stop sneaking around his back, and he wants you to destroy the letter. Later in the game, it's revealed that Uriel and Lysander's wife were, in fact, not sneaking around behind Lysander's back, but something in regards to a totem of Tiber Septim, and that it's hidden away in Castle Daggerfall. You sneak in, get it, it tells you to get your filthy hands off of it by handing it to someone who is of royal blood, which determines the ending you get, and there are about 7 of them. I'm not going to show them all here. It's basically the same thing, but with different images, and later games tell you that they're all canonical anyway, so just go with the faction that you like the most. At the game's final dungeon, I was so ready to be done with Daggerfall that I used console commands to skip past most of the nonsense that came with the final dungeon, like search for the lever that opens the 3-lined gate. But I did really like the one part of the final area with the lava falls that made up its walls, because it reminded me of the final area of Darkland's main quest. Final thoughts is that while I do like Daggerfall, or rather, I like and even respect what Daggerfall tried to do, it would seem that Bethesda Softworks was so engrossed on making Daggerfall's world as large as they could, they never once stopped to ask if they should, to quote Aqua Walrus. I've often heard it be called a fantasy life simulator, and I do agree with them in that that is exactly what Daggerfall is. A fantasy life simulator. It has a huge world, multiple things to do, multiple factions to join, numerous provinces to go to, with loads of dungeons to explore if you can find them, which requires either getting a quest to go there or finding a map that has that location on it, or, actually trying to explore the wilderness of the Iliac Bay to find the dungeon entrance. But the problem with Daggerfall is, and if you watched my Darklands review, you'll know that I had the same problem with that game as well, and that it tried to be an open-world fantasy life simulator RPG, but after only a few hours worth of gameplay, you had seen pretty much everything Darklands had to offer. Same exact thing with Daggerfall. Once you've seen the first 5 or 6 hours of Daggerfall, if even that, then you have seen everything that Daggerfall has to offer. It's really a shame. Thankfully, Daggerfall Unity has the ability to allow mods to help enhance your gameplay experience. Unfortunately, none of the available mods at current really help to alleviate Daggerfall's main problem of quickly running out of new things, but the modders have come up with some pretty neat ideas so far, so who knows what we'll see in the future if they continue to work on it. Overall, Daggerfall is a good game, and one that I do think deserves at least a little bit of your time at the very least, even though your interest will most likely slip away just a few hours after starting. But it's interesting to see how it had an influence on the later Elder Scrolls games. It should always be remembered for that, if nothing else. It looks pretty good for a game that came out in the mid-90s. It has a lot of soul, and if you're a completionist sort of gamer, you can get a lot of mileage out of it. Just remember that, much like with Darklands, Daggerfall gets very repetitive very quickly.